Hi and welcome to this week's video. In this video we get the fuel tank outlet sort of fairing supports and covering supports made out of plywood, fitted, and I'm quite pleased with the outcome, so let me show you how I did it. Come on now. First stage of the fuel fitment fairing build up. I've put in some strip there, that's just going to dry, then I'll plane that down to support the plywood along the back edge there. So I've drawn onto here how I plan to have the sort of supporting rib sections going out for the plywood. You can see it's notched out to go over the geodetic structure there, and this one here for the geodetic structure. You can sort of see how it's sloping to go with the rib line for the main ribs. Although it's going to be covered over, I think that's still important because I've used this, I've traced the outline by placing it onto the side there and tracing and marking it. So we'll see what happens. I'm doing this side first to see how it works out before I do the other side. So I've got this framework here mocked up, well, glued in place. This is my trial, and so the plywood would run along here. It seems to be doing quite well, but we've got a problem with it matching up with this section here, so that's why we need it cut out. Got the tape on. I can take that tape off for the minute for just doing a test. That's just there to stop dust from being able to enter the tank. So the fuel pipe is going to come through sort of somewhere here on the rib. I want to be able to feed it up and through from inside the bay there, so to get it into position when I'm replacing it on the aircraft. But I also want to be able to get to here and be able to pull it and get it to seat onto that nozzle. So I can see that I need to have a gap to at least there to be able to do that. We'll do that cutout radius, obviously, to stop having a stress razor. It's going to go across here. That will be angled slightly for it, so it will go across, radius around to come back down here. Here it will go back to somewhere about here on this rib down. I'm going to bring it just past here a little bit and scallop it just to help with the covering, so we don't have a really hard edge. I'm just going to scallop that bit of ply at the back edge there. So there's the initial plan. I'm going to get the plywood and see if we can get it to work. So I've dressed back the ends of the geodetic so that where the pipe goes, because otherwise it was going to chafe. I've got it clamped down. This is it sitting on the, I think there's room there for the hose to go through without it rubbing. There's enough room there for a Jubilee clip clamp to go around the hose and not protrude it too much into the system, so it can go in. I can screw it up and there's enough room for that. So I've got a plan going. Of course can't glue this all together until we've varnished inside there and underneath this little lot, because it's going to be very hard to get anything in once it's all bonded. So that's going to happen. So from now I'm going to happy with the basic design. I've got to replicate that on the other side, so I won't bother showing you that until I've got that done. And then once that's done, we'll get this little lot varnished. In fact, I'll probably varnish the whole of this bottom area while I'm about it. Might as well get that sorted out. Okay, I've rounded the corners here, so where the fuel tube goes around that bend there, same as I've rounded the hollow there, so the fuel tube's got something smooth to conform to, no sharp edges. I've chamfered this down very slightly so the plywood sits better, meets up with this small rib, support rib section here, so it does a nice progressive curve onto that. I've done that on both sides, so the other side is to the same standard, and I've masked off the areas where the resin is going to go, so I can actually now varnish this area on both wings before I bond this in, because it's going to be very hard to varnish inside these areas once that plywood's in place. So just give it a quick brush over, and then I'll apply the varnish. It'll be 3 coats to this area underneath the tank, 2 coats to everything else, as is the norm. The reason for the extra coats is because of, you know, chance of the fuel leak or something. I don't want it to get any chance of soaking into the wood, and it's very much a blind area, so it'll be very hard to inspect for moisture as well. Okay, as you can sort of see now, the first coat has dried. How, you know, it almost looks like there's no varnish on there at all. You can see a slight sheen where, but hardly anything at all. You can sort of see there's something there by the change of colour. So this will just have a quick light sand now. It's been drying for 48 hours, so have a light sand with some 220 grit just to take off any hairy bits off the top, and it'll have its next coat of varnish. Okay, so there we are with all the coats of varnish on. Now to this area, you'll see it's got just the slightest sheen. That's had extras on there, so it's going to be sanded back eventually. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sand this area where the plywood goes, is going to be bonded in. So just going to sand that, and we'll get some glue applied. So there's the covers on at the moment. See, just taking the clamps off, so it needs a little bit of a sand and clean, and then we're going to start looking at these areas here, and I'll mark those up. So there we have the plates in place on both sides. So see how I cut that back. Things to do. So really this is the end of the week for me. So things which I've got left to do. I've got to round off these entry bows. I want to make a plate to go in here, going across to support the fuel tube going through with the grommet, so when it comes round it's at the right place for it to go into the tap. So I've just got to work that one out exactly. I think it's going to be between these 2 points here on both sides. That's just going to be a piece of 16th ply glued effectively to the front of the geodetic here with the hole in it there and there. So that won't be too complex, and with that little lot done, I can then take the wings off. I might just do a bit of varnishing around, then I can take the wings off the stand here, turn them back the other way, finish the bows off on the top side, and do the leading edge sort of balsa sections at the front. So nothing particularly exciting. The metal work will come off here, and we'll start getting some varnishing done with it that way up to start off with. Hopefully if the weather's right I can do a bit of spraying, but next week work is getting in the way. I'm away for a couple of days, so that'll slow things down. At least we've got these sorted out, and might start making up some bits to allow for the covers which are going to go over these. That's going to be a bit of fun. I've got to order the material that I'm going to make them out of. we'll see what that is when we get round to it. So thank you for joining for the video, and keep well. Catch you again next week. Bye now. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up. You can subscribe or even hit the little bell notification for future videos. Any comments would be appreciated, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Remember, go fly and feel the sky.